It was a bitterly cold morning in New York City. The streets were wet from last night's rain, the wind slicing through the narrow alleys like invisible knives. At the corner of 45th and Lexington, in front of a coffee shop buzzing with early commuters, sat an old man with a faded wool coat and a cardboard sign that simply read, "Hungry. Anything helps." His name was Henry Carter. Henry had been on this corner for years. He didn't ask for much, just enough to buy a cup of coffee or a sandwich most days. He was invisible. People stepped over him, around him, or dropped a crumpled dollar without making eye contact. In his mind, he deserved it. Life had chewed him up and spit him out. He had long accepted that he was a failure. In his youth, Henry had worked as a mechanic, fixing engines with steady hands and quiet pride. But after his wife died in a car accident, grief hollowed him out. He quit his job, drank too much, and drifted. One bad decision after another left him sleeping under bridges. By now, Henry's life had shrunk to a routine: sit, wait, hope. One Tuesday morning, as Henry sat in his usual spot, a young woman in a navy coat stopped in front of him. She didn't rush, she didn't look away, she simply crouched down to his level. "Hey," she said gently, "what's your name?" Henry blinked. "Henry, I'm Laura," she said, smiling. "Can I buy you breakfast?" Part of him wanted to refuse. People had offered food before, but this felt different, like she wasn't just trying to ease her conscience. She actually wanted to know him. Against his own instinct, Henry nodded. Inside the cafe, Laura ordered him pancakes, eggs, and coffee. As he ate, she asked about his life. At first, Henry gave short answers. But something about her patience chipped away at his guarded silence. He told her about fixing cars, about the accident, about how he'd lost everything. Laura listened. She didn't pity him. She didn't tell him to just get a job. She said, "Henry, you're more than the worst thing that happened to you." It had been years since anyone had said something like that to him. A week later, Laura returned. She handed Henry a business card. "My brother owns an auto shop in Queens," she said. "He's looking for someone who knows their way around engines. No pressure, but if you want, you could come by and meet him." Henry laughed bitterly. "I haven't touched an engine in over a decade. I'm too old, too slow." "No," Laura cut in firmly, "you're not to anything. You just forgot who you were." The word sat heavy in his chest. That night, for the first time in years, Henry couldn't sleep, not from the cold, but from the thought that maybe, just maybe, he could still matter. 3 days later, Henry stood outside the auto shop. His hands trembled not from the winter air, but from fear. Laura's brother, Mike, greeted him with a warm handshake. "Laura says you're good. Let's see what you've got." They walked to a rusted pickup truck with a stubborn engine. Henry stared at it, unsure if his hands still remembered what to do. But as he picked up the tools, muscle memory took over. Within an hour, the engine coughed to life. Mike grinned. "You've still got it." Henry felt a flicker of something he hadn't felt in years prior. Mike offered him a part-time job sweeping floors and occasionally working on engines. At first, Henry was hesitant, but slowly, he started showing up every day. The other mechanics welcomed him, joking about his old-school techniques. He began to shave, wear cleaner clothes, and take showers at a nearby shelter. Within months, Henry was fixing more cars than anyone else, Customers started asking for him by name. His paycheck was small, but it meant he could buy his own meals. One day, Mike tossed Henry a set of shop overalls with his name embroidered on them. "You're part of the team now," he said. Henry took them with shaking hands. For the first time in years, he felt like he belonged. It happened on a rainy Friday. A news crew came to the shop to do a segment on small businesses. When they interviewed Mike, he insisted they talk to Henry. The reporter asked, "Henry, we hear you used to be homeless. What's your story?" Henry hesitated, but then something inside him shifted. He spoke honestly about loss, grief, addiction, and the kindness of a stranger who refused to let him disappear. He ended with, "People think I was a beggar, but really, I was just a man who needed someone to believe in me before I could believe in myself." The interview aired that night. Within days, Henry's story spread across social media. Messages poured in from people saying his journey gave them hope. Donations flooded the shelter he once stayed in. Henry was no longer just a man on the corner. He was a symbol of resilience. A year later, Henry had his own small apartment. He still worked at the shop, but now he also volunteered at the shelter, fixing bicycles for kids and teaching basic car maintenance to anyone who wanted to learn. When asked why he did it, Henry would smile and say, "Because someone once looked me in the eye and saw a person, not a problem." The man who once sat invisible on the corner of 45th and Lexington was now proof that one act of kindness could change not just a life, but the world. And that was the untold truth of the beggar who shocked the world, not because he was rescued, but because he remembered how to stand again.